welcome to the party. Welcome to Fishing Without Bait. Welcome to a lifetime without definitive expectations. Welcome to a lifetime of exploding through your life, of being in that dark chrysalis and exploding and crawling right out of that dark hole, spreading your wings and living your life in Technicolor. Welcome to Fishing Without Bait. Welcome to Full Impact Mindfulness. Welcome to our world. Climb on, let the adventure begin. If you hear some chatter in the background, it's because we're having a celebration for our 100th episode of Fishing Without Bait. Imagine that, number 100. Wow, cool, huh? Cool, huh? Who would have ever thought that these poor young country boys from Western Pennsylvania would turn into media stars and something that would go across the universe into the ether, and we'd immortalize every single one of our thoughts in our episodes. Hi, I'm Jim Ellermeyer. I'm a behavioral health therapist and obviously full of myself today. And I'm joined by my good friend, co-producer of this program, Mr. Mike, and also his lovely wife, Miss Missy, who produces this program quite often, does the Twitter feed and the Facebook. Welcome aboard, guys.
Glad to be here on episode past 100, actually. And great to be part of this celebration.
However, we can choose to name this episode whatever number. Can we not, Mike?
Yes.
We can choose. We have choices, do we not? So it was back in June of 2015 that we had an idea that we were going to explore an area of mindfulness that perhaps might be a little different focus than your standard sit on a satin pillow surrounded by 10,000 candles going all day. Would you say that, Mike?
Absolutely. And you know, something that would reach people kind of in a different way.
Reach people in a different way. Explain that more. Say more about that, Mike.
Well, it's always, this topic, I've been working around it for several years, as you have, and it's not always accessible because of those ideas people have for this concept, like you just explained a moment ago, right? And I think you had a really interesting angle on everything, and I really liked our conversations that we had, and a lot of times when I'm starting a new podcast, it's always like, hey, these conversations that we're having, I think they'd be good to share. And this is the mechanism that I like to put that out there.
Sure. So when we started this podcast out, we weren't interested in helping people find themselves. We were interested in helping people create themselves. We were asking people to develop superpowers. We were asking people to hear the sound of their own voice. We were asking people to become uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. To stretch out to find that stretch out point, that comfort zone. We wanted to make people out of the comfort zone. We wanted to make them uncomfortable enough to proceed ahead in their lives, to make choices, to have those power words, the I am, the self-validation, the I choose statements. And Missy's been along with us from the very beginning. So how was it in the beginning, Missy?
It was much different than it is now. Pretty much it was you and Sorg talking across from each other like you are right now. But it was a different atmosphere. We didn't have the crowd behind us that we do today, and both figuratively and literally. So it's kind of interesting to see how your message has spread throughout the masses, and it's kind of cool to look back at it in retrospect.
So we started out rather mundane. I remember the first 10 or 15 episodes, we did the standard mindfulness things, the things. And actually, I got quite bored with it, to be honest with you. So then we decided to turn this thing into a challenge podcast. Did we not, Mike?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the great kind of interactions that we've included with the show.
I remember one of our earliest episodes was what we called Double Dog Dare You. So we dared people to step out of their comfort zone. We dared people to open their eyes. Remember when we did an episode, Mike, with rather than walk through your life with eyes wide shut, with eyes wide open?
Absolutely.
And we were asking people and instructing them how to do that? Mm-hmm. Remember that episode about feel the tingle? Feel the tingle about being alive. Do you feel the tingle about being alive now, Miss Missy? I
do. It's invigorating. It's energizing, and kind of like the Energizer Bunny, it just kind of gives you that momentum to just keep going.
So what we talked about when people were bored, did we not? Mm-hmm. And we talked about when people were bored, then shame on you. There's something in every single moment, is there not?
Absolutely.
So we talked about mindfulness, Miss Missy, as nothing more than paying attention on purpose, did we not?
Absolutely.
And having the ability to label and describe everything that you see about you. And if you can do that, then you'll never be bored again.
I think it's also important to point out that Missy has been doing the transcribing of these podcasts for the website. So she's really been very deep into our words here on the show as well. I mean, has that really kind of, and I know I've experienced a lot of these through the work I've done with Jim before this podcast. You're kind of being introduced to a lot of these concepts for the first time that I've seen for a while.
Well, the even better part of it is like I'm live tweeting while I'm sitting here on the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting the message as we're talking about it live. I'm spreading that message while we're live by the tweets and the Facebook messages. And then I turn around and I transcribe it, and then I reschedule additional tweets to spread the message later on. So I'm getting this kind of like four different ways. And there are times when we're sitting here listening to it live in studio, and I get a different message from it when I'm transcribing and setting up the social media later on.
Mm-hmm. So as someone as intimately involved with this production as you are, Missy, what could you tell our audience and perhaps Mike and I about the evolution of this program?
Well, I think much with anything else, it's personalized. You have your message, you have your information that you're sharing out, but it's not. You're not expecting people to look at it the same way that you are. You're challenging them to take what they want to take away from it. So your message says one thing, but I interpret it sometimes a different way because it speaks differently to me. And like there are some points that you kind of touch upon that were meaningful to your message, but there's a different part that's more meaningful to my message. And I think that that's kind of the best part of it is I can take it and I can adapt it to myself.
We've talked and we focused, Mike, much on what's important in people's lives, have we not?
Absolutely.
Indeed. And one of the primary premises of Fishing Without Bait is that we're spiritual beings. We just happen to be having a human experience. And we ask people to be able to label and describe and find the things that are holding them back. One of my favorite episodes was when we talked about how monkeys were caught. That's absolutely one of my favorite episodes. You remember that?
It's a great visual, and we've touched on it a lot since.
Yes, we have.
The idea of you put the shiny thing the monkey wants and they won't let go of it to escape the trap because the hole's too small for the object but not their hand.
So what shiny thing are you holding on to and how important is it? And how can we help you label and identify it and let that go? And part of that thing involves us making magic, does it not, Missy?
It does. Yeah.
Our magic word, do you remember that?
Abracadabra?
Abracadabra.
Ooh,
Mike, what do you remember about abracadabra?
Usually I imagine you on the stage with the top hat, but pulling the rabbit out of the hat, of course. Which people can absolutely, if they're not on the live stream, imagine that's the way he dresses every week for the podcast, since we are mostly audio.
With a cape and a top hat, yes.
Absolutely.
However, once again, for those who are perhaps maybe unfamiliar with this podcast, maybe jumping in on the 100th, feel free. They're all out there. They're all archived. They're immortal, we hope. So the idea about abracadabra is we associate it with a magic. We associate it with making something appear. However, it is a real word. It's a translation from ancient Aramaic, the Bible's Jesus, and what it translates into is what I speak, I create. What I speak, I create. So what we're talking about is having that positivity in your mind, finding that authentic self of yours, addressing that dysregulated thinker, and having that positive self-validation. Abracadabra, what I speak, I create. Making it happen. Make it happen. We can't live our lives on wishes and hopes, and we talk about that frequently. Do we not, Mike?
Absolutely.
We talk about the two words that mean the most in our lives. We talk about action and effort. And we also talk about kindness and compassion. We talk about what's important. What's important? Is it all about me or is it not? And we often talk, Missy, about that difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance and confidence. Huge, huge difference. What would you have to say about that, Missy?
Arrogance is walking into the room and knowing that everything is perfect and that kind of bending everybody's will to your way. And confidence is just knowing that you're doing good and you're doing what's right and not having to bend people to your will because people will automatically kind of want to to go with you.
And confidence is doing what you say and saying what you do.
Absolutely.
Being trustworthy. And the bottom line of all recovery, and remember, my friends, everyone's in recovery from something. Honesty, open-mindedness, and the willingness to try. If you have a few pixie dusts of those, then you're well on your way. We're challenging you to go down the rabbit holes. We don't ask people not to be there, okay? We challenge you to do that. We challenge you to go forward into your life. We challenge you to take chances. We challenge you to give everything and have no regrets. We also challenge you to be kind to yourself and be kind to another. Sacrifice brings compassion to your heart.
I had a question for you, Jim. What have you learned from doing 100 episodes of this show?
What have I learned from doing 100 episodes of this show? I think as when Socrates went to the oracle at Delphi and the people said, well, what did they tell you? And he said that I was the wisest man on earth. And they said, well, what does that mean to you? And he says that I believe that I'm the only person on earth who truly understands their own ignorance. So I've learned to step back and laugh at myself. I've learned to find out about the absurdity of life, and I've learned not to take myself too seriously. As often I've said it, I'm in love with the sound of my own voice and all
Absolutely.
these different types of things. It's truly been a humbling experience to especially sit down. And what's really a humbling experience is to listen to the sound of my own voice, listen to these podcasts being replayed to me, and finding out, holy smokes, wow, I really didn't know what I was talking about. And that's okay. That's all right. I give myself permission to be me.
If everybody who had a podcast had to be vetted for knowing what they're talking about, there wouldn't be nearly as many podcasts. So that's kind of the beauty of the platform is you can get out there and kind of workshop your ideas a little bit.
Indeed. And that's the beautiful part about experimentation. We throw something out there, and if it works, great. However, remember, as Bob Ross says, there are no failures. There's only happy accidents, and that's what we're looking for on Fishing Without Bait.
Here's to 100 episodes of happy accidents.
Episodes. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to another. Namaste.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. Fishing Without Bait is a production of Namaste Holistic Counseling, PC.